Chapter 1. To protect her tax-evading assistant, my wife, who was also my superior, committed perjury, framing me for the crime. Unable to defend myself, I was sentenced by the law and imprisoned for 3 months. After my release, I faced ostracization from furious colleagues, and my prospects for promotion were utterly destroyed. Seeing me remain calm and composed, my wife, Victoria, assumed I had finally become obedient. She even announced she would throw me a lavish makeup wedding. However, during the wedding vows, her assistant, Ethan, overcome with jealousy, ran to the company rooftop, threatening suicide to force Victoria to cancel the wedding. Victoria, who always doted on him, panicked. She abandoned everyone at the wedding, jilting me publicly at the altar, and spent the entire night comforting her little assistant. Afterward, she casually explained to me, "Ethan is young and impulsive. I was just worried something might happen to him. Besides," she added, "he pulled a lot of strings to get you released early. Technically, he's your savior. I couldn't just leave him." I glanced at the newly worn couple's ring on her finger, nodded slightly, and said nothing. Victoria thought I'd bought her excuse, seemed quite pleased, and, quite out of character, promised to take me on a honeymoon once she'd placated Ethan. But she seemed to have forgotten. She had already signed the divorce papers, and I had filed a lawsuit with the court to reopen my case. From then on, we were no longer husband and wife, just plaintiff and defendant. 1. The day after my wife, Victoria Ashworth, abandoned our wedding, the small group chats at work were still buzzing about the fiasco. Even at the office, I could feel the pitying glances from numerous colleagues. "So, after a blow like that, how do you think Sincere will retaliate? Make a scene at the company against Victoria, or hang banners cursing Ethan Miller?" "Probably not. He seemed pretty stable yesterday after Victoria ran off. Maybe those 3 months inside scared him. He's probably afraid Victoria will divorce him, so he doesn't dare make trouble anymore." As I walked into the office, several colleagues were roaring with laughter. They fell silent when they saw me enter. Before, I probably would have been angry, furious even. But now, I said nothing, pretended not to hear, and sat down at my desk under their intense stares. They were right. 3 months of imprisonment had worn down my edges. Besides, I was already prepared for their mockery. Everyone at the company knew about the absurd relationship between me, Victoria, and her assistant, Ethan. Victoria and I met in college and fell deeply in love. After graduation, I excelled academically and was hired by the company with a high salary. Victoria, however, had mediocre aptitude and struggled to find work. Eventually, I used my connections to get her into the company. I stayed up late helping her with tasks she couldn't handle. I scrambled to fix the messes she made. Later, when there was an internal promotion opportunity, I voluntarily gave her the spot. No matter how tired or exhausted I was, seeing her happy made it all seem worthwhile. But 2 years ago, Victoria risked termination by hiring Ethan Miller, who didn't even qualify for an interview. Her excuse to me was that he reminded her of her younger self. Though I wasn't happy about it, to support her, I personally trained Ethan until he could work independently. I didn't expect gratitude from Ethan, but I never imagined I would overhear him complaining to Victoria, accusing me of long-term suppression and verbal abuse. I couldn't help but confront them. Victoria, however, accused me of being defensive and demoted me without even investigating. After that, she constantly targeted me for Ethan's sake. She dumped Ethan's responsibilities onto me. She put Ethan's name on proposals I painstakingly designed. She even made me run across town for 2 hours in the winter to buy Ethan's favorite breakfast. I thought she was just temporarily confused, but then came the tax audit. To protect him, Victoria colluded with other colleagues to report me, shifting the blame onto me. She even used her status as my wife to plant fabricated evidence in my room beforehand. The sudden betrayal left me unable to defend myself. During the 3 months I was locked up, she visited me only once. She said she would never divorce me under any circumstances. I thought she still had feelings for me, But it turned out she just wanted me to give up hope and not implicate Ethan. Thinking of this, I let out a self-deprecating chuckle. My phone buzzed with a message. I opened it. It was from the lawyer I had contacted earlier. "The file you sent last night contains key evidence, but it's heavily fragmented. The agency says it will take 3 days to restore it fully. However, the other evidence is solid. If you're in a hurry, we can file the lawsuit now." Though the words were simple, my hand tightened around the phone, knuckles turning white. Since my release, I had stayed by Victoria's side, seemingly letting bygones be bygones. She thought I didn't dare divorce her, that I had learned my place. But she didn't know that every single day and night I had been searching for evidence to prove my innocence. Now, finally, I took a deep breath, my voice firm. "No rush. Set the filing date for 3 days from now. Whatever the cost, whatever it takes, we must win this case." The lawyer paused for a moment, then replied solemnly, "Upholding justice is our mission. The law will not allow an innocent person to suffer unjustly, nor will it let any criminal remain at large." After hanging up, I was about to turn off the screen when a message from Ethan popped up. I opened it. It was a picture. He and Victoria were standing in the kitchen. Victoria wore an apron, head bowed as she cooked. Ethan was playfully pressing his cheek against hers, their posture intimate. Victoria's lips were slightly upturned. She seemed to enjoy his closeness. Yet previously, if I so much as touched her lightly, she would push me away in disgust, saying she hated physical contact from the opposite sex. Now it seemed she didn't hate contact from men, just contact from me. One call from me, sincere, and Victoria ditched the wedding for me. Stayed all night. "You've been married 5 years. Bet she's never been that attentive to you?" His tone was as proud and provocative as ever. I knew he was doing it deliberately. I had complained to Victoria about him before, but she hadn't even looked at the proof, just impatiently asked if I had provoked Ethan. Why else would he provoke me and not others? She claimed she wouldn't get involved in conflicts between men. But when I, angered, retaliated against Ethan, what followed was Victoria's scolding. She accused me of making a big deal out of nothing, resented my pettiness, saying I was too easily provoked. I scoffed. I initially planned to ignore him, but when I didn't reply, Ethan sent several more photos in quick succession. I saved each one and forwarded them to my lawyer as supplementary evidence. Then I blocked and deleted him. Less than 2 minutes later, Victoria's call came through. "Sincere, did you delete Ethan from your contacts?" she demanded accusatorily as soon as I answered. "What's wrong with you? Don't you know how childish that is? Don't forget you and Ethan still have work interactions. If you delete him, are you just going to ignore your work from now on?" I remained silent. Whatever I said would be wrong. Whatever I did would be wrong. Victoria took my silence as guilt, her tone hardening. "Apologize to Ethan and add him back. Then I can let this go. Victoria, Sincere is your husband after all. Apologizing to me isn't appropriate. I've already forgiven him. Let's just drop it." Ethan's voice, sounding aggrieved, cut in before I could speak. He sounded like he was defending me, but I knew he was just trying to provoke. Sure enough, Victoria sneered. "Husband? So what? I've always been fair in my dealings, never based on relationships. I especially despise people who abuse their status as a husband to misbehave. Sincere, I'll ask you one more time, do you admit you were wrong?" I laughed. Yes, I know I was wrong. Wrong for not seeing through her sooner. Wrong for not handing her back to Ethan earlier. But before I could articulate that, Victoria gave a satisfied humph. "As long as you know you were wrong. Considering you just got out of prison and might still be dazed, Ethan and I won't hold it against you. Ethan helped a lot with your release this time. By all accounts, you owe him an apology gift." "Don't be so formal, Victoria. It was the least I could do," Ethan demurred. "You're just too kind, but I insist on this. Don't refuse." The two went back and forth, giving me no room to interject before Victoria hung up. I quickly understood what Victoria's insistence meant. She had arbitrarily charged $30,000 from my account and transferred it to Ethan Miller. 2. When Victoria agreed to marry me, I gave her my bank card pins as a sign of good faith. I tacitly allowed her to use my card, thinking we were family, and besides, as the man, I should contribute more to the household. Initially, she only bought our daily necessities. Later, seeing I didn't mind, she started buying herself designer clothes, luxury bags, and cosmetics costing hundreds of dollars. My salary was $6,000 a month, but by the middle of each month, my account would be down to mere cents, not even enough for a meal. I couldn't help but mention it gently a couple of times. Victoria threw a fit, accusing me of begrudging her spending, and declared she wouldn't rely on me anymore, wanting to be an independent woman. After that, she did stop the excessive splurging, but I noticed a fixed expense of about $3,000 every month. It wasn't long ago I discovered that this was the budget for gifts for Ethan. Victoria told me to save money diligently, not even letting me buy 10 packs of 3 underwear, yet she bought Ethan socks worth $50 a pair. She preached frugality. I wore a pair of 20 cheap shoes, patched up and worn for 2 years, yet within a month she bought Ethan 2 pairs of Air Jordans worth several $100s each. She also talked about planning. She meticulously planned the grams of ingredients for my meals, yet she and Ethan spent over on a single birthday celebration dinner. Thinking about it now, I felt increasingly ridiculous. However, large transfers required verification from the account holder. Soon Victoria sent me a message just like always. Verification code. I glanced at our past chat history. I couldn't recall when, but at some point, the only messages Victoria proactively sent me were these 2 words. She had once complained that verification codes were troublesome and wanted me to get her a supplementary card. But back then, though usually compliant, I had, for some unknown reason, perhaps guided by a subconscious instinct, refused. Thinking back now, maybe even then, a part of me was already trying to save myself. I scoffed, ignored the message, and left the company. First, I drafted the divorce papers, then took the house deed to the nearest real estate agency. The house was our marital home, bought outright by my parents when we got married. They specifically chose a neighborhood Victoria liked. During the transfer, to reassure her, my parents even arranged for me to add her name to the deed. Yet over the years, whenever my parents wanted to visit for a few days, Victoria would still show her displeasure, making me use busy with work as an excuse to turn them away. Thinking about it now, I felt truly unfilial. When I told the agent I wanted to sell the house, they informed me I still needed Victoria's signature. I showed them the proof of full payment from my parents. The agent explained, "This can be used as evidence in court, but for a standard sale process, signatures from both parties are required." I understood. I couldn't afford to break ties with Victoria just yet. I needed to completely sever our connection before going to court. Thanking the agent, I requested a template for a power of attorney agreement and went home. I thought Victoria would be out late again, but when I opened the door, I saw her sitting on the sofa, her face grim. Seeing me enter, she shot me a cold glance. She stood up, walked into the bedroom, and slammed the door shut with a deafening bang. This was a staple of our previous Cold Wars. I knew she expected me to go apologize and coax her. Though I didn't want to, looking at the agreement in my hand, I sighed and walked to the door. I'd coaxed her so many times before, one more wouldn't hurt. Besides, this apology could get me the entire house back. With that thought, I pushed open the bedroom door. Before I could even step inside, the eyebrow razor she commonly used came flying at my face. I dodged instinctively, but it still grazed my cheek, causing a sharp sting. Seeing she had actually hurt me, Victoria froze for a second, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Then she resumed her usual demeanor. I expected her to demand I kneel and apologize first, or perhaps transfer her some money to calm her down, as she had done before. Instead, she spoke with uncharacteristic earnestness. Sincere, I know you're still holding a grudge about the wedding, but I explained yesterday. Ethan is young, impulsive. He really might have done something drastic. Going to him was also for your sake. If something had really happened to him, could you live peacefully for the rest of your life? I found it laughable. Why couldn't I? Victoria looked at me as if I were a lost cause. Aside from the fact that he's a human life, he's also our colleague. We've worked together for years. How could you just watch him die? Besides, he helped a lot with your release this time. If he hadn't pulled strings, would you have gotten out so quickly? I felt it was absurd, like listening to a fairy tale. Why hadn't she considered that if it weren't for him, I wouldn't have gone to prison in the first place? And my lawyer had mentioned that under normal circumstances, my case wouldn't warrant 3 months of detention. Whether his string pulling was meant to help or harm me remained unclear. I didn't voice these thoughts to Victoria. She wouldn't believe me anyway. Seeing my silence, Victoria assumed she had persuaded me and smiled. This time I charged your card. It was also to help you accumulate good karma. Perhaps your imprisonment was due to your usual stinginess. Maybe even fate couldn't stand it and decided to make you bleed a little. Do you really think I care about your paltry sum of money? After her dismissive remark, Victoria noticed the documents in my hand. What are you holding? I'm planning to sell this house. Sell the house? Victoria raised an eyebrow. Just as I was considering what excuse to use to convince her, I heard Victoria cover her mouth and laugh. Are you finally going to listen to me and sell this place to get a bigger one? I told you long ago the feng shui in this house is bad. That new development next door isn't bad. I had someone check it out. Victoria chattered on. I realized she was referring to her previous attempts before my imprisonment to get me to sell this house and buy into the new development next door. She had painted a rosy picture to get me to agree, but I knew her real motive. Ethan was planning to buy there, and she wanted to live near him. I didn't correct her. I simply nodded. You're right. I'll handle the paperwork tomorrow. Previously, I had always been the one to run around handling all the troublesome procedures, big or small. So Victoria didn't think twice and signed the power of attorney agreement without hesitation. After she signed, I smoothly turned the divorce agreement to the last page. Why does this look different from the first two? Victoria sensed something amiss and was about to look at the cover. Just then, her phone rang. A glance at the screen made her eyes curve into smiling crescents. She lost all interest in checking the agreement and hastily signed her name at the bottom. All right, you can go out now. I have things to do. Victoria waved me away. I didn't need her to tell me. I knew the call was from Ethan. Every night they would talk on the phone for nearly half an hour before bed. I didn't know what plans they made this time, but for the next 2 days Victoria was out early and back late. Unlike before, I didn't bother offering well-intentioned concern only to be rebuked for being nosy. This time, I focused solely on handling my own affairs. The next day, I went to the real estate agency and submitted the power of attorney. To sell the house quickly, I listed it at a very low price. Within half a day, a buyer viewed the property and closed the deal directly. On the 3rd day, my lawyer informed me that the fragmented evidence had been successfully restored, and the court was already processing the case. Everything was set in stone. All that remained was for the case to be reopened, and the injustices I had suffered would be repaid manifold. 3. I returned home, planning to pack my things. As I reached the doorway, I saw my belongings piled up by the stairwell like garbage. The custom couple mugs I once cherished were broken in half. The photos of Victoria and me printed on them, once closely embracing, were now separated and tossed into opposite corners. I cast a glance at the mess and pushed open the apartment door. Victoria and Ethan were standing hand in hand in the living room, pointing around the house like a sweet couple. Victoria, what if Sincere objects to me using this house as a game room? Don't worry. Half of this house is mine. My approval is enough. As I walked in, I saw the gentle look in Victoria's eyes as she gazed at Ethan. Sincere, what are you doing here? Ethan spotted me first, raising an eyebrow. He deliberately tightened his arm around Victoria's waist. Isn't it work time? Why are you here? I didn't speak, just looked at Victoria, who appeared slightly flustered beside him. She instinctively tried to push Ethan's hand away, but then seemed to realize it was too late. Resigning herself, she looked at me coldly. Sincere, who gave you permission to leave early? Absolutely no discipline. I order you back to the office right now. I can symbolically dock half a day's pay, otherwise it's triple penalty according to company policy. Her words made me want to laugh, but I knew she was serious. Others could be late or leave early and she'd turn a blind eye. But with me, the punishment was always real. I had worked so hard to help her reach this position, and in the end, all her insidious tactics were used against me. Ethan chuckled. Victoria, don't be angry. Sincere probably spent too long in prison. He's not used to things yet. Give him some time to adjust. His words appeased Victoria's anger. Her expression softened slightly. When she looked at me, her eyes were full of disappointment, as if I were beyond saving. Sincere, you should learn from Ethan. He's young but sensible, successful in everything he does. Unlike you, so old and rigid. All right, I won't hold this against you. Since you're here, I happen to have something to discuss with you. I've already sold the house. I already guessed what Victoria was about to say. Before she could finish, I cut her off calmly. The contract is signed. Besides, my parents bought that house with their own money, in full. It has nothing to do with you. You have no right to decide anything about it. Perhaps shocked by my bluntness, Victoria's brow furrowed tightly. Sincere, are you crazy? I've been married to you for years and now you're being petty about one miserable house? I corrected her. One miserable house worth $500,000? Besides, after all these years married to me, what exactly have you done that warrants me not being petty about $500,000? Framing me for prison or cheating on me? Victoria was speechless, her face flushed red with anger. Finally, she spat out, Sincere, I never thought you were this kind of person, despicable and selfish. Ethan flashed a triumphant smile, lightly patting her back comfortingly. Forget it, Victoria. Don't let this ruin things because of me. I'll feel really guilty, he said. Then he approached me. Sincere, this is my fault. It has nothing to do with Victoria. If you want to blame someone, blame me, not her. I know you don't want to see me. I'll leave right now. As he spoke, he raised his hand as if to pat my shoulder. I was about to dodge when a cunning glint flashed in Ethan's eyes. He grabbed my hand, forcefully pushed it against his own chest, and then stumbled backward, letting out a muffled groan. Before I could react, Victoria slapped me hard across the face. Sincere, are you insane? Ethan was kindly trying to reason with you. Why did you hit him? She helped Ethan up, her eyes fixed deadly on me. My face stung sharply, and rage flared within me. I stepped forward quickly, about to retaliate, but then I saw the smugness in Ethan's eyes and regained my senses. Even though I didn't know what new scheme they were hatching, I knew this was more than just jealous rivalry. Acting rashly would only put me at a disadvantage. I didn't need to get into trouble because of this scum. I forced myself to swallow my anger. Victoria, however, wouldn't let it go. She rushed to the door, deliberately messing up her hair and clothes, opened it and screamed, "Help, someone's committing domestic abuse." Hearing the commotion, several neighbors gathered around. Victoria had already spread the news of my imprisonment. Now, hearing her embellished story, the neighbors quickly sided with her, shielding her and pointing fingers at me. I've already called the police. Let this domestic abuser go back to jail. Perfect for a second timer. Someone sneered, shaking their phone at me threateningly. Just then, my lawyer arrived with 2 police officers. That was fast. The neighbors assumed the police were responding to the recent abuse call and clamored to speak up for Victoria. Victoria was also surprised but didn't overthink it and stepped forward. "Are you Victoria Ashworth?" one of the officers asked coldly before Victoria could speak. "We're here regarding the tax evasion case. Someone has submitted stronger evidence proving that the real tax evader is your subordinate, Ethan Miller, and you, as his superior, knowingly broke the law and committed perjury. The evidence is currently conclusive. Please come with us to the station to cooperate with the investigation." Chapter 2. The police officer's words stunned everyone into silence. Ethan's eyes darted around guiltily. Victoria was also flustered but managed to force a smile. "Officer, the evidence in that case was conclusive back then. Besides, it's been so long, wasn't the case already closed?" the officer stated impassively. "Someone submitted new clarifying evidence. This evidence is very strong. Moreover, doubts have been raised. Regardless of how much time has passed, we are obligated to investigate." Victoria tried to argue further, but the police remained firm. Anticipating Victoria's reaction, I had already instructed my lawyer on how to counter her arguments when we filed the report and lawsuit. I wouldn't have started this fight without being absolutely certain of winning. Seeing the situation, Ethan was the first to regain composure. His eyes darted around, and then, as if struck by an idea, he looked at me with a pleading expression. "Sincere, you did this, didn't you? I know you can't stand me. If you have a problem, just come after me. Don't drag Victoria into this. Whatever the final outcome, once she's involved in a lawsuit, her career prospects at the company will be affected." Hearing Ethan, Victoria snapped back to reality. She stopped pleading with the police and turned to glare at me angrily. "Sincere, when did you report this? I order you to withdraw the lawsuit immediately. This matter was settled 3 months ago. Stop filing false reports and wasting police resources." I found it amusing. "Didn't the police just say I submitted substantial evidence? How is that filing a false report?" Victoria scoffed. "Sincere, I know you're bitter about being imprisoned before, but don't just grasp at straws. Filing a lawsuit is not a game. I'm advising you this for your own good, as your wife. If it turns out you filed a false report, the consequences could be much worse than just 3 months in jail." Some uninformed neighbors around us also looked at me with disdain, urging me to turn over a new leaf. I didn't know how Victoria had portrayed me during my imprisonment, but judging by their expressions, almost everyone saw her as the victim. I didn't explain, just let out a cold laugh. "You keep calling me your husband, but is bringing another man home while your husband is in prison how you treat him?" Saying this, I took out my phone, opened the photo gallery, intending to show the neighbors the pictures. Victoria had brought Ethan home the day after I was imprisoned. She had cleaned up meticulously afterward. If someone hadn't accidentally captured it with a drone, I would probably still be in the dark. Victoria's face turned deathly pale. She lunged, snatched the phone, and smashed it on the ground. But it was too late. All the neighbors had seen the image of her embracing Ethan. The neighbors who had been fiercely defending her moments ago instantly changed their expressions and distanced themselves. Victoria looked like she was about to break down, but this wasn't over yet. I continued, "Similarly, since you're so convinced of your innocence, what's the harm in letting them investigate? Or, are you rushing me to withdraw because you have a guilty conscience?" I emphasized the last few words deliberately. The neighbors had supported Victoria because they saw her as a victim. Now, learning of her infidelity, suspicion arose. Was the tax matter true or false? A question mark naturally formed in their minds. A few started whispering among themselves. Ethan also grew anxious. "Sincere, how could you do this? Victoria and I are innocent to slander." "Victoria, you actually photoshopped such pictures? That's utterly despicable." I anticipated he would try to deny it. I glanced at my lawyer. Understanding my cue, the lawyer took out his phone. "The photos are photoshopped? What about the video?" Victoria was standing close and saw the video thumbnail first. Her face went completely white. 5. Before the lawyer could play it, she lunged forward, snatched the phone, and deleted the video. I couldn't help but scoff. Deleting it doesn't matter. I have plenty more evidence, enough to let you thoroughly reap what you sow. I rarely pushed people so aggressively. Victoria finally understood. I had prepared everything before this confrontation. Continuing to fight me would yield no benefits. She glared at me furiously, consumed by impotent rage. Sincere, I am truly disappointed in you. Just then, Ethan, standing beside her, seemed to think of a plan. He leaned in and whispered something to Victoria. Victoria's eyes lit up as if grasping a lifeline. After getting permission from the police with a forced smile, Victoria took out her phone and made a call. I recognized the number. It belonged to her boss, Miss Reed. Initially, Miss Reed had looked down on Victoria. It was I who had mediated and eased their relationship. Later, for reasons unknown, they had become incredibly close, like sisters. After hearing Victoria's situation, Miss Reed paused for 2 seconds, then chuckled. Victoria, I roughly understand. Just cooperate with the police investigation. Since you didn't do it, there's nothing to fear. But no, I can't. I didn't do it, but this is happening right during my promotion period. If word gets out, it will reflect very badly on me. Victoria glanced around, lowering her voice. Didn't you have connections before? Please help. Try to keep this from blowing up. Besides, don't you remember this incident? Before Victoria could finish, the person on the other end seemed to know what she was about to say and cut her off sharply. Victoria, what are you talking about? Connections? Help with what? You running wild at the company is one thing, but do you really think everyone is your parent and has to indulge you? The police need to investigate. Just cooperate obediently. Calling me is useless. All right, that's the end of this call. I'm still busy. Goodbye. With that, the other party hung up directly. Her tone was completely different from how she usually spoke to Victoria. Those unaware might praise her righteousness, but I clearly sensed the haste in her words, obviously hiding something. Victoria stood frozen, as if struck by a bolt from the blue. Even after the call ended, she remained and seemed utterly lost. Before I could dwell on it, she suddenly thought of something and turned to me hastily. Her tone, moments ago filled with disappointment, instantly softened. She pulled me aside. Sincere, I admit defeat. Can you please stop this? The house is yours. We'll stay married. From now on, whatever you say goes. But please, withdraw this lawsuit. I'm about to be promoted. Ethan is still young. Can't you, for the sake of our many years together, just let this go? Her eyes pleaded earnestly, yet I only found it increasingly laughable. Many years together. Did she think about our many years together when she framed me and sent me to prison to help Ethan? Seeing my silence, she seemed to know what I was thinking. She bit her lip and added, "We are husband and wife right now. If something really happens to me, do you think you can escape unscathed? If our assets are really frozen, it will be our marital property. You won't get a single cent." Mentioning property, she seemed to think the threat of mutual destruction would work on me. A flicker of hope appeared in her eyes. I nodded. True. Seeing my response, Victoria's eyes brightened again. Just as she was about to speak, I pulled out the already signed divorce agreement from my bag and presented it to her. Fortunately, we are already divorced. 6. To ensure she saw clearly, I specifically showed her the page with her signature. We're already divorced, so where's the marital property? Your imprisonment has absolutely no effect on me. I scoffed lightly. Victoria's eyes widened in shock as she stared at the divorce agreement in my hand. Her face turned deathly pale. Impossible. When did I? She still tried to deny it. I reminded her, the day we sold the house. The third document. Victoria seemed to remember. All color drained from her face, leaving it terrifyingly pale. You, she pointed at me, her thin lips trembling. You tricked me? Sincere, I trusted you so much. How could you dare to trick me? I scoffed. Trick you how? Didn't you sign the papers willingly? Didn't I hand you the complete document to look at? Weren't you the one rushing to talk to Ethan on the phone, signing hastily, and leaving all the details for me to handle? If, at that moment, she had shown even a shred of concern for me, had bothered to glance at what I gave her, things wouldn't have reached this point. I was merely saving myself. But the person who pushed her into the abyss was she herself. With things spiraling out of control, Ethan lost his composure for provocation. He hastily addressed me, Sincere, you and Victoria have been together for so many years. How can you divorce over such a small matter? I know you're angry because of me. I'll disappear from your lives from now on, okay? You and Victoria are so perfect together, practically made for each other. If you really divorce because of me, I'll feel incredibly guilty. His tone was sincere. However, this time I could tell that his words about not wanting us to divorce were genuine. Not because he truly thought we were compatible, but simply because he was afraid that without any constraints on me, he would actually end up in prison. I gave a faint smile. Speaking of compatibility, you two are certainly more suited for each other. You've already shared the good times. Hopefully you can endure the hard times together too. I wish you both well. With that, I simply looked towards the police officers and said, "Thank you for your trouble." The officers nodded and moved forward to ask Victoria to cooperate. The neighbors, who had been watching the dramatic turn of events unfold, snapped back to reality and began whispering amongst themselves, pointing fingers at Victoria and Ethan. Victoria, too flustered to even try explaining, rushed forward and threw her arms around me. Sincere, I'm sorry, I apologize to you. Please withdraw the lawsuit, okay? We don't need to take things this far. I admit I was wrong. I'll change from now on. I'll listen to whatever you say. I can apologize to you publicly online, accept everyone's supervision. Oh, right, the wedding wasn't finished. Didn't you want a wedding? I'll arrange another one. We'll make it the talk of the town. How about that? Her closeness, which I once yearned for, now only brought back images of her with Ethan, churning my stomach with nausea. I pried her fingers off me one by one, forcefully pushing her away. Since you did it, what are you afraid of now? Life in prison isn't as terrible as you might imagine. There's food and drink, a regular schedule, just no freedom. You'll get used to it after a while. Besides, the evidence is conclusive. No one can help you. I repeated the words she had told me on the day I was imprisoned 3 months ago verbatim. However, it's a bit different for you. You'll need to behave yourself in there. Otherwise, what awaits you? Well, I wouldn't know. I pulled up my sleeve, revealing large scars and cigarette burns hidden beneath. Also, this finger of mine was broken before. Victoria's eyes widened, her entire body trembling. Ethan panicked too, dropping to his knees before me with a thud. Sincere, I beg you, please help us. I'm still young. I don't want to go to prison. I had intended to ignore them, but seeing their frightened, pleading faces, an idea suddenly struck me. All right, I can let one of you off. 7. Hearing me relent, the two were about to breathe a sigh of relief. But my next words made their momentarily eased hearts clench tightly again. However, I can only withdraw one charge. After all, we can't have the police come all this way for nothing. I'd face charges for filing a false report too. You two can discuss which charge you want me to drop. They exchanged glances. Ethan spoke hastily. Victoria, you know I'm still young. My life is just beginning. If I go to prison, this life is completely ruined. Take the fall for me this time. It's only a few years. When you get out, Sincere won't abandon you. If worst comes to worst, I'll marry you, okay? Victoria then shook her head, her voice choked. Ethan, no, I can't. Ethan tried to persuade her further, but Victoria kept repeating the same refusal. She wouldn't do it. After repeated attempts at persuasion, Ethan completely lost his patience. He forcefully shoved Victoria away, roaring, "What do you mean you can't? You're the one who caused this mess. I already said I'd confess early for a lighter sentence. but you insisted on framing Sincere. The one who tied the bell must untie it. You caused this problem, so you fix it." As he finished, his eyes glared venomously at Victoria. Whenever they were together before, his gaze had always been incredibly gentle. This was the first time he had revealed his vicious side. Victoria stared wide-eyed, as if seeing him for the first time. "Ethan, have you forgotten? I did that to help you." "Help me?" Before Victoria could finish, Ethan let out a cold laugh, his voice icy. "Then help me all the way, see it through to the end. Besides, who ever heard of helping someone halfway? If it weren't for your meddling, maybe my punishment would have just been a fine. It's because you interfered that things ended up like this. Do you realize what kind of punishment we face now that this has been exposed?" Ethan glanced at me. Clearly, he wasn't stupid. He knew that my aggressive comeback meant I had no intention of giving them any breathing room. Victoria stood frozen, seemingly unable to believe Ethan would treat her this way. "Ethan Miller, do you have a conscience?" "All this time I've been helping you," Victoria said, incredulous. Ethan, however, adopted a self-righteous stance, sneering dismissively. "Helping me by betraying Sincere. I told you long ago I didn't want that kind of help. Sincere is innocent too. From beginning to end, neither Sincere nor I did anything wrong. We are both victims. You're the one who's been manipulating things all along. Without you, perhaps Sincere and I could have been good friends." He then turned to me, his tone pleading. "Sincere, she's the one who kept bad-mouthing you. She's also the one who kept flirting with me. We're both men. You should understand." Ethan spoke earnestly, simultaneously accusing Victoria while attempting to forge a connection with me. I knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't need me to feel close to him. He just needed me to realize how bad Victoria was to achieve his goal. Victoria, being pointedly accused and enduring the judgmental stares of the surrounding neighbors, had tears welling up in her eyes. I knew how much pain she was in right now. Betrayal by someone you trust leaves no one unscathed. After a moment, seemingly unable to bear it any longer, Victoria completely broke down. "Ethan Miller, do you really think I don't have evidence that could destroy you?" With that, she strode purposefully towards the police officers, took a deep breath, and solemnly enunciated each word. "I want to report Ethan Miller for private misappropriation of company assets and suspected fraud." Her action was sudden. Ethan, who had been frantically jumping around just moments before, froze as if struck by lightning. It took him a long moment to react, his eyes turning red with fury. "Victoria Ashworth, are you fucking crazy?" Ethan lunged forward to attack her but was quickly subdued and pinned to the ground by the police. This turn of events was so abrupt that even I was surprised. Ethan and Victoria were now suing each other. I recalled that the company had indeed experienced a theft of assets sometime before, but the surveillance system was under maintenance at the time, and without concrete evidence, they couldn't identify the suspect. Now, with Victoria providing crucial evidence and connecting it to the previous incident, the investigation quickly zeroed in on Ethan. Evidence was collected, and in less than 3 days, the charges were confirmed. I was somewhat taken aback when I heard the news. Not long after Ethan joined the company, I had sensed his ill intentions and specifically warned Victoria to be wary of him. Later, she did many things for Ethan, even framing me and sending me to prison to protect him. I had lost all hope in her, yet I never expected that she had actually listened to even one of my warnings. And it was that single warning that ultimately saved her. My lawsuit followed swiftly. In the end, Ethan's crimes were deemed severe, involving a large sum of money and multiple offenses. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He was still young. 15 years wasn't insurmountable. But times change rapidly. When he gets out, he will still face immense challenges. Victoria's charges were less severe. Coupled with her sincere repentance and credit for reporting Ethan, she was sentenced to 1 year of imprisonment. The case was tried publicly online, clearing my name of the charges that had been wrongfully imposed on me. At the company, people looked at me with complex expressions, a mix of sympathy and scrutiny. Do you think Sincere regrets making such a big fuss? Even though he got revenge, he still lost those 3 years in prison. What's the point now? Yeah, now his wife is gone, his home is broken, he's all alone. It's quite pitiful when you think about it. If he had just persisted, endured a little longer, maybe Victoria would have come back to him. I think he just got too jealous and turned dark. That kind of person is quite dangerous. But I bet he's kicking himself now, full of regret. As I went to the company to submit my resignation, I overheard some people discussing this in low voices as I passed the break room. My steps faltered for a moment. I walked over and calmly replied to the person who had spoken last. No regrets. If you don't believe me, the next time something like this happens to you, feel free to be a coward. No matter what, I believe the law protects the innocent and the just, and it will not spare any criminal who acts recklessly. The person I addressed turned red and white, stammering, unable to respond. I ignored him and walked straight past. A few steps later, I heard the group silently disperse. When I reached the office and handed in my resignation, Victoria's boss, Miss Reed, smiled at me and tried to persuade me to stay, but I still refused. Considering all that Victoria had done, all the punishment she had inflicted on me, I couldn't believe Miss Reed was unaware. She chose to turn a blind eye. I didn't know her motives, but I knew they weren't pure. 9. Even though my name was cleared, the fact that I had been incarcerated was still part of my record. For the following period, finding work was difficult. Despite my best efforts to prove my innocence, potential employers remained wary. I thought the job search would take a long time. Unexpectedly, a week later, I received a call from my childhood friend, Clara Hayes. Clara told me she had just returned to the country, started her own company, and hoped I could come help her. I hesitated for a long time, then told her about my imprisonment. Clara paused for a moment. So, should I add compensation for emotional distress to your salary? After such a huge ordeal, you deserve some proper comforting. I was speechless. Later, I learned that Clara had specifically sought me out after hearing about my situation. I was deeply moved. It wasn't that I didn't understand her feelings, but I still chose a bright, sunny day to tell her everything about my previous divorce and the ugly fallout with Victoria. Clara held her coffee cup, took a sip. I saw a flicker of disappointment gradually appear in her eyes, and my suspended heart slowly sank. After a few more minutes, Clara silently paid for the coffee. We parted on uncomfortable terms. Even though I had prepared myself for this, I still felt uneasy. Clara didn't come to the company for 3 consecutive days. Sensing she was avoiding me, I considered whether I should proactively offer to leave. Just as I had made up my mind late one night and was about to draft my resignation, Clara suddenly called me and asked me to come downstairs. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for a peaceful separation. However, as soon as I got downstairs, before I could even speak, Clara thrust a card and a stack of 7 or 8 colorful certificates into my hands. I've transferred all my liquid assets onto this card, using an account set up with your ID. Also, these are all my real estate properties. I've already transferred them to your name. Don't worry, if I ever do anything to wrong you, I'm prepared to leave with nothing. If I propose to you right now, will you say yes? Clara looked at me, her eyes full of apprehension. I felt struck by lightning, the reality of the moment seeming surreal. You spent the last few days doing all this? Yeah, Clara nodded. It was supposed to take 2 days, but some procedures were complicated. I paid extra to expedite them, but it still took longer. I was rendered speechless. I couldn't help but think about my earlier suspicions of her. I thought I had completely cut ties with Victoria, but I hadn't realized that the insecurity she left me with had subtly seeped into my soul. I declined Clara's proposal then and there, and over the next 3 days I helped her transfer all the assets back into her name. Another year passed. At the company's new product launch event in front of everyone, I openly proposed to Clara. Clara froze for a moment, her eyes brimming with tears. 6 months later, we held a grand wedding. On the wedding day, guests filled the venue. I received a text message from Victoria, wishing me a happy marriage. By now, I had almost completely put her out of my mind. Receiving the message, I stared at the once familiar number, taking nearly a minute to recall its owner was Victoria Ashworth. "Groom, it's almost time. What are you standing around for? Go get your bride." The master of ceremonies' voice pulled me back to reality. I looked up. The sky was as blue as ever. It was a beautiful day, a gentle breeze stirring the clouds overhead. I smiled and, almost without thinking, deleted her message and blocked her number. Then I lifted my head and strode confidently out the door. Time marches on. I walked forward, boldly stepping into my future. End.